Nora was an 18-year-old girl from the Igbo tribe. She just finished her secondary school. She lived with her parents and happens to be their only daughter and child. From the outside, everything looked normal. But deep inside, Nora carried a pain that she didn't know how to explain. Her father treated her differently. The way he looked at her, touched her sometimes, and spoke to her made her feel very uncomfortable. It wasn't like how a father should love his daughter. It felt wrong. Nora felt betrayed, like the one person who was supposed to protect her had broken her trust. She tried to talk to her mother about it. She hoped her mother would listen and understand. But every time she gathered the courage to speak, her mother would say, "It's just fatherly love. You are overthinking it." Nora felt confused and helpless. Her heart would sink, and she would cry silently in her room. There were times she wished she could disappear, go somewhere far away where no one could see her or hurt her. She even wished she had never had a father at all. It felt like her voice didn't matter, like no one saw what she was going through. Nora kept everything to herself. But deep inside, she promised that one day, she would find her voice and tell her story. Nora was a smart, kind and also very beautiful. Her skin was smooth like fresh palm oil, her eyes were bright, and her smile could light up a room. Many people in the estate where they lived would say she was the kind of girl that only a strong man could resist. Since Nora was in junior secondary school, Mr. John, her father, started looking at her in a strange way. At first, she didn't understand it. But as time went on, he began to make small comments about her body and beauty. He would touch her shoulder or waist when no one was looking. Nora didn't like it. She felt very uncomfortable. She told him to stop, many times. "I don't like this," she would say. But Mr. John would just smile and act like it was a joke. Sometimes, he would even try to give her money or gifts so she wouldn't say anything. Nora tried to tell her mother. She hoped this time her mother would believe her. But her mother only shook her head and said, "Your father means no harm. Don't think too much." These words broke Nora's heart. She felt like no one was ready to stand for her. Every time she saw her father, her chest would become heavy. She would try to hide in her room or leave the house, just to avoid him. She was always sad. She would lie awake at night, asking herself why no one believed her, not even her own mother. She felt alone and wished someone would just listen to her pain. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, Mr. John would quietly sneak into Nora's bedroom. She would wake up to find him sitting on the edge of her bed, his eyes full of things she didn't understand. Slowly, he would start touching her breasts or brushing her hair back, pretending to be kind, but Nora could feel something was wrong. "Daddy, what are you doing?" she would whisper, scared and confused. He would smile and say, "You're so beautiful, Nora. I can't help myself." "But you're my father," she would remind him firmly. "You're my dad." "That doesn't matter," he would reply softly. "No one has to know. Your beauty is too much for me to ignore." Nora's heart would race. She would try to move away. But he'd stay there, talking gently, like he was trying to make it seem normal. "You're married," she'd say, trying to make him stop. "What about your wife?" "My mother." "Do you know you are cheating on her?" "She won't find out," he'd say with a calm voice. "This will be our little secret." Nora felt terrified. She couldn't believe her own father is saying this to her. Her whole body would freeze. She didn't know what to do. On that same night, Nora's mother woke up in the middle of the night. She reached out beside her but didn't feel her husband there. At first, she thought maybe he had gone to the restroom. She waited for a while, expecting him to return. But time passed, and he still didn't come back. She sat up on the bed, listening carefully. The house was quiet, too quiet. Something didn't feel right. She waited a bit longer, hoping he would walk in any moment. But when he didn't, she got out of bed, put on her slippers, and quietly stepped out of the room. Her heart started to beat a little faster as she looked down the hallway, wondering where Nora's mother walked into the sitting room, but it was empty. Her husband wasn't there. She looked around, a bit confused. Where could he be at this time of the night? She wondered. It was already late, and he never stayed out of bed this long without telling her. She stood there for a moment, listening to the quietness of the house. Then she turned around and decided to go back to the bedroom. But just as she reached the hallway, she heard voices. It was her husband. He was arguing with someone. She listened closely. It was Nora's voice. Surprised, she walked quickly towards her daughter's bedroom. What could they be arguing about? She thought, her heart starting to beat a little faster. She forcefully pushed the door open, and to her greatest surprise, she saw her husband and Nora, their only daughter, struggling as if they were dragging something. Shocked and confused, she quickly asked her husband, "What are you doing in Nora's bedroom at this time of the night?" He looked up, surprised, and replied calmly, "I was just going to watch TV and decided to check on her." Nora's mother stared at them for a moment. Her husband's voice sounded normal, and nothing seemed too strange at that moment. She was still half asleep and didn't want to start an argument, so she convinced herself that everything was fine. With a tired sigh, she turned around and left them there, closing the door behind her. John turned to his daughter and told her not to ever tell her mother what had just happened. He looked serious, almost afraid. But Nora was too angry to listen. Her face was red, her eyes full of tears. "You're wicked," she shouted. "I can't believe you're my father." John's heart sank. He had never seen this kind of hate in her eyes before. "I wish you were never my father," Nora said, her voice shaking. "I regret it so much." John stood there, frozen. He wanted to say something, to explain, to fix things. But the words wouldn't come. The room was silent except for Nora's quiet sobs. Then, without another word, she turned and ran out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Nora's mother slowly walked back to her bedroom. Her heart was beating fast, and her hands were shaking. She sat on the edge of the bed, still thinking about what she had just seen. Did I really see that? She asked herself. Is this what Nora has been trying to tell me all this time? Or am I just misunderstanding a father's love? She kept asking herself again and again, confused and worried. Just then, her husband walked into the room. He looked calm on the outside, but there was fear in his eyes. He said softly, "I only went to check on Nora, nothing else." There was a long silence. Nora's mother looked at him and slowly nodded. "All right," she said. But deep inside, her heart was full of doubt. Her husband felt a little relieved, but he was still scared. What if Nora told her mother everything? What if she said the truth? He lay down beside his wife, pretending everything was normal. But his mind was racing with fear and worry. Nora cried all through the night. Her pillow was soaked with tears. Her heart was heavy, and she kept asking herself one question over and over again: what kind of parents do I have? Her father had become her worst nightmare. He was supposed to protect her, but instead, he was the reason she no longer felt safe. What hurt her even more was that her mother never believed her. Nora wished, more than anything, that her mother would open her eyes and see what was really happening. But it felt like she didn't want to see it. The next morning, Nora sat quietly at the dining table, waiting. She expected her mother to say something about the night before. Maybe she'll ask why Dad came into my room so late, Nora thought. Maybe she heard something and will finally believe me, but her mother said nothing. Not a word. She acted like nothing happened. John kept coming closer to Nora every day. He always found a way to be around her, talking sweetly, offering help, and pretending to care. At first, Nora tried to avoid him. She didn't like how he looked at her or the things he said. She tried to tell her mother about how uncomfortable her father made her feel, but her mother didn't listen. She always believed John her husband and told Nora to stop making up stories. Nora felt hurt and alone. No matter how much she tried to explain, her mother refused to believe her. Slowly, she stopped talking about it. The more her mother ignored her, the more powerless she felt. John noticed this and became bolder. He would touch her when no one was looking and whisper things in her ear. She hated it, but no one seemed to care. After a while, Nora gave up. She was tired of fighting alone. Since her mother didn't want to hear her, Nora felt like she had no choice. One day, when John her father asked her to come to his room, she didn't resist. She just followed him, her heart heavy. From that day on, she did whatever he asked, not because she wanted to, but because she felt trapped and alone. Sometimes at night, John would quietly go into Nora's bedroom and sleep with her until morning. Her mother noticed this many times. She felt something was not right. One day, she asked Nora about it. But Nora only smiled and said, "It's just fatherly love, nothing else." Those words hurt her mother deeply. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do. She felt helpless and wished she had the power to stop it. Every time she saw her husband walk into Nora's room, her heart broke a little more. After some time, John changed even more. He stopped giving his wife money for the family's needs. Instead, he gave the money directly to Nora, sometimes even in front of his wife. His wife felt like she no longer mattered. It was as if she had been pushed aside, while Nora became more and more like the woman of the house. She wanted to speak out, but fear and confusion kept her silent. Nora's mother sat quietly on the old couch in the corner of the living room. She used to be the center of their world. But now, things had changed. Nora and John no longer paid attention to her. They would talk and laugh with each other, as if she wasn't even there. Sometimes, they would sit right next to her and start chatting, whispering things only they understood. They would giggle and even kiss in front of her without caring how it made her feel. It was like she had become invisible in her own home. She felt hurt, ignored, and left out. Her heart ached, not just because they didn't include her, but because she felt pushed away. She watched them, smiling and happy together, and a wave of jealousy would rise in her chest. Not because she didn't want Nora to be happy, but because she missed being part of her daughter's life. Infant Nora's mother is confused. No one asked how her day went. No one sat beside her just to talk. She felt like a stranger in the home she had built. Each night, she would go to bed with a heavy heart, wondering if they would ever look at her the same way again. That night, Nora's mother sat alone in her bedroom. The house was quiet, and her heart was heavy. Her husband had once again moved to their daughter's bedroom, as he had been doing for some time now. She stared at the wall, lost in her thoughts. She began to wonder if maybe what Nora had been telling her was true after all. Could she have been so blind? How did she not see it? All those times Nora tried to talk to her, she brushed it off, thinking it was just a misunderstanding or a phase. But now, everything felt wrong. The signs were clearer, and her silence had only made things worse. She felt a deep sadness in her chest. Her daughter was gone. Her husband was not beside her. And she, too, felt alone, like a stranger in her own home. The laughter they once shared as a family was now a distant memory. She missed Nora deeply, missed her presence, her voice, her smile. She missed her husband too, even though his actions now brought her pain and confusion. Tears filled her eyes as she wished she could turn back time, to listen better, to protect her daughter, to hold her family together. But it was too late for regrets. She had made mistakes, and now all she could do was pray. She knelt beside her bed and whispered a simple prayer. She asked God to take control. She didn't know what the future held, but she hoped for healing, for truth to shine, and for her family to be restored, if it was God's will. All she had left now was faith. Please subscribe and comment for part 2.